Ethics can be boiled down to a set of moral principles. As such, an ethical code is unable to provide you with an objectively correct solution to a problem. If that were the case, everyone ethically making the same decision would arrive at the same conclusion. Instead, different answers can be arrived at by taking a variety of approaches. Business ethics are a product of their times. It would have been considered ethical in America to make use of slave labor prior to the 1860s, which would be unthinkable today. Ethical considerations in the workplace first began to mandate in the 1970s, as a direct result from losing public confidence in the light of recent business scandals. Today you will find such mandates in most businesses.
There are largely 8 different approaches to ethical conduct. Namely, they are supernaturalism, consequentialism, deontological or duty-based ethics, virtue ethics, emotivism, situation ethics, intuitionism, and subjectivism. Supernaturalism is inseparable from religious beliefs. As religious beliefs should not enter the workplace, they are irrelevant to business ethics. Consequentialism is about taking the necessary action to achieve a certain objective. The action is irrelevant and the objective is the only consideration. This approach can therefore require immoral actions to achieve the desired objective. Deontological or duty-based ethics is instead concerned with what the right thing to do is, and is not concerned with the outcome. Right and wrong are absolute, and you therefore have the duty to take the righteous action, regardless of the consequence. Virtue-based ethics guide you to make decisions based upon what you imagine a virtuous person would do. This is not in an attempt to take the right action, but instead take the righteous action. Such beliefs are typically held all throughout a person's life. Emotivism examines not only what is said, but how ideas and opinions are expressed in order to understand people's true feelings. Expressions on a person's face, body language, and tone of voice are added to what that person is saying. Situation ethics are entirely contextual, and is therefore the embodiment of the idea that there is no universal right or wrong. Each situation is judged by its unique circumstances in an effort to come up with a solution. Those who take this approach have a strong sense of moral obligation and are willing to defy established laws and practices. Intuitionism involves making decisions using your gut instinct. People who are most qualified to take this stance are those with experience in their field. Subjectivism is a reflection of a person's morality and feelings and opinions on the matter. Such an approach can lead to people wrestling between the two when they conflict with one another.
For our first scenario, let us imagine that you are representing your company in a tender. Should you research the shortcoming of your competitor? From a consequentialism or a result-based ethical approach, only the consequence is considered, and the action required to achieve this conclusion is disregarded. Such an approach can require immoral actions, leading you to elevate yourself above your competitors by highlighting their shortcomings. For our second scenario, we have assumed the position as a project lead. A job that your team complete earns you a promotion. However, your colleague did most of the work. Should you suggest that this colleague be promoted instead of yourself? From a deontological or a duty-based ethical approach, only the action is considered, whereas the consequence is disregarded. Such an approach can lead to unfavorable result. Should you simply thank your colleague for their contributions? From a virtue or a character-based ethical approach, actions are taken from what you expect a virtuous person to do. Such an approach would earn you respect from your colleague as a project lead. Suppose that your colleague is visibly displeased with your promotion when you go to thank them. Should you still take the promotions? From an emotivism ethical approach, stances are assumed from how people express their opinions. This can extend to the person's facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice. A decision could then be made based upon how your colleague reacts to your promotion. Suppose that you were sick on the day that your colleague came up with a great idea. However, you also come up with a great idea, but were unable to make the contribution. Should you still take the promotion? From a situation ethical approach, right and wrong are entirely contextual, disregarding any established law and practices. Such an approach could mean that you will pass up the promotion in favor of your colleague's consideration. Suppose that the promotion is a leadership position, which better fit your experience as a project lead. Should you still take the promotion? From an intuitionism ethical approach, your gut could tell you that you should take the promotion because it better suit the role you play in the team. However, your gut could instead tell you that your colleagues still deserve the promotion because they did the bulk of the work. All of these scenarios can also be classified as a subjectivism ethical approach. Such an approach is dependent on the perspective and view that the person holds, assuming that there is no objectively correct solution.
Various ethical concepts and philosophies can be used in debate as they appeal to a person's morality. These include, but are not limited to, an end in itself, the slippery slope argument, and the doctrine of double effect. You frequently hear the phrase, a means to an end. The philosopher Immanuel Kant put forward the idea that each person is their own end, meaning that simply existing gives a person value. This can be used to argue against self-destructive acts and tendencies, such as suicide and self-harm. Such acts include the controversial topic of voluntary euthanasia. The slippery slope argument poses that taking the first step in a certain direction can lead to a cumulative significant chain effect. A relatively small step can therefore have a positive effect in the short term but a negative effect in the long term. Going back to our previous point, the slippery slope argument suggests that if voluntary euthanasia were to be made legal, involuntary euthanasia would at some point start to happen. This puts forward the idea that it is acceptable for a doctor to administer a potentially lethal dosage of painkillers to a patient if it is done to relieve suffering, slope argument, and the doctrine of double effect. This puts forward the idea that it is acceptable for a doctor to administer a potentially lethal dosage of painkillers to a patient if it is done to relieve suffering. In this case, relieving the patient's suffering is the morally good thing to do, and the potential lethality of the dosage is the unintended morally bad side effect. This train of thought ignores the fact that we are responsible for the consequences of our actions. However, the legal system is a good example of intention being taken into account when you are held responsible for your actions.